25. Gotten better at being able to wait for that. So with that, just a reminder to everyone that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. So if anyone's remote, please be careful on what you may screen share. Okay, with that, may I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Peter made the motion, Jerry made the second, and by roll call, so I'll start with Joanna.
Aye.
Thank you. Stephen?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. I'm now going to open. I'm sorry. Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. I didn't see you on the screen. Joe, thank you. And I'm now going to open it for public comment for any item that's not on our agenda. No hands in the room and no hands on the screen. I will close it for public comment. The first item on our agenda today is discussion, deliberation, and potential motions for Citizen Warrant 8, Article H, Appropriation Teen Recreation Center. And I am looking for Isaiah, or who's speaking to this? Is the sponsor on?
Hi there, I'm here.
Oh, thank you, Isaiah. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Isaiah, what we'd like to do is have you talk about 5 minutes about this article and why you're looking for a positive motion. And then I'll open it up to the committee to ask questions. And then if there's any members of the public that want to ask questions or add to what you've said, then they can speak after the committee's asked their questions. So, and the reason it's 5 minutes is because at town meeting, you get 5 minutes. So think of this as kind of your practice run. So if it goes over a little bit, then of course, I'm not going to cut you off exactly at 5 minutes. So thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I think this is an amazing opportunity. What we're doing is really based off of the behavioral health research study that the town did a few years ago. And the main findings around challenges for youth on the island. You know, the takeaway for me when I read through it is really that we need to create, repurpose, or construct new spaces for kids to have things to do. I think most people who are on the island don't need to be convinced that we have a health crisis on the island with kids from drug overdose. I think there was nearly 20 this summer or this year, past the year. A very high rate of suicide, just a general lack of things to do and places to go for teenagers. Boys and Girls Club's amazing, but it doesn't really speak to 14 to 18-year-olds. Lots of wonderful kids are getting college scholarships from the golf club, but between 14 and 18 is what we call the gray area. So what we do currently is we give kids health club memberships. We personally train them for free, and we create a positive environment built around something to do, socially focused on getting kids together, climate controlled. And we've been doing that for nearly 10 years on the island. And it's tremendously rewarding. It's a real pleasure and sometimes kind of heartbreaking to see where some of these kids are at. And we've built inroads and relationships with the high school, with Elizabeth Hallett, the superintendent, with Travis Lombardi, the athletic director, and with a handful of the sports coaches. So what we are asking for, having gone to the golf club and asked them for some financial support for this nonprofit initiative, they said to me, why would we do this? Isn't this the town's job to provide a community rec center, a safe place for teenagers, and to a certain extent, training for young athletes? And I said, well, that's a great point. Let's go ask the town. And so what I propose is that the town warrant and the golf club collaborate to launch this pilot program for 1 year only so that we can reach more kids. We've got a couple dozen on rotation in the program at all times. We've probably worked with over 100 kids over the last couple of years. And there are 600 kids in the high school. Many of them play sports, almost 70%. That's one of the highest engagement rates in the country for high school sports, and that's wonderful. But that still leaves about 150 kids who aren't playing sports. So our goal in this program is to engage kids who aren't engaged in sports at the club, which is walking distance from the high school, and to go on site and work with sports teams to bring a higher level of coaching and mentorship to kids that are involved in sports. This is something that other towns outside of Nantucket on the Cape and the mainland, our competitors typically have. It's standard to have a very advanced strength and conditioning program in any school system to help all sports improve. The school would love it. They don't have a budget. This is, yes, health and fitness and wellness, but really what it's about is coaching, mentorship, one-on-one relationships. I think most of us understand that parents are influential when kids are young, but it is our peer group that is really effective when we become teenagers. And so we are trying to support that initiative, bring down the depression, bring down the challenges we're dealing with on the island, and do it in a very simple and cost-effective way. I don't believe, outside of our house, which is a great program and quite different, I don't believe there are any other programs like this or even proposals in this area. And I would just remind you that this was one of the top 2 findings in the town's own research. Since then, nothing has been done that I'm aware of, and I challenge anyone to correct me. But that's what we're doing. We're taking it straight to the kids. We've got great engagement. We just want to expand and reach more kids and address this problem. Is my time up?
You have another minute.
I'll say this. I've been in this health and fitness for over 30 years and owned lots of clubs around the country. And I helped some friends start a program in Boston called Inner City Weightlifting. What we were doing is going to hardened gang members in Mattapan and engaging them in a fitness and wellness program that basically got them onto something positive. And as they got engaged, it was transformative. This 1% of the population is responsible for 90% of the gun violence. So we're really addressing gun violence in Boston, and we got the mayor and the fire department, police department, everybody on complete nonprofit. So this isn't quite as extreme, but I believe it's no less important. And it's very much the same methodology and approach.
Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you. Okay, questions from the committee. Peter?
Isaiah, I think it's a great program, and I think we should do all we can to support it, but I have a couple questions. Number one is, when the building was given, I think it was given to this use, was there a budget that went along with it?
Actually, I just bought the building. So I'm trying to make it work as a teen center. It currently includes the other building as well. We have a vision for building a new building down the road, but that's not where we're at yet. So no, there is no funding except for me doing what I've always done, which is taking business funds and giving it to support the kids.
I'm sorry, I don't know where this building is. Is it,
It's, I don't know where.
where's the building, Isaiah?
Well, the health club is 117 Orange Street, and we
Okay,
acquired
so it's
one
the
Cherry.
EZIA building.
Yeah, and behind it is one
Okay.
Cherry Street.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions, Peter?
No, we're good.
Jeremy?
How much money are you looking for?
Well, you can, I can share my financials with you, but we've estimated about 600,000 annual operating budget to make coaching and mentorship and equitable access for all kids available to all 600 kids in the high school. So it's about $100 a month per kid to have coaching and a place to go.
Thank you. Other questions? Libby? Oh, Peter, I'll come,
Yeah.
okay. Libby, I believe you had a question. If you're still there. And if you're not, I'll go to Peter. Peter?
Yeah, Isaiah, when you say coaching, is that just like for sports coaching, or is it life coaching?
Both. And also in the middle is just sort of general health and wellness. Every kid's not an athlete. And not
Right.
kid even really wants to be involved in health and fitness. That's our challenge, is engagement and attracting the right kids in the right way. But all of that is sort of the worm on the hook. It's disguised for relationships, one-on-one with peers and with adults, like Big Brother, Big Sister program, which won't touch teenagers apparently because it's problematic, and I understand. But these are the kids who need someone in their life. Their coaches, the touch is limited. Their guidance counselor, the touch is limited. And I know this because they're telling me. They're looking for more support and relationships in the community. And that is what a coach is. A coach is very much like a big brother, big sister. So it could be skincare, it could be massage, it could be working out, it could be hanging out. We are trying to encourage kids to do good things and be productive and take care of themselves and learn life skills and career opportunities. But coaching is a very broad term, right? So yes, it does have to do with sports or fitness coaching, but what we're really doing is working with individual people. We have kids who are struggling to apply to college. They're coming to us. We're helping to direct them so they can get ahead in their college application process. Our entire program is kind of set up like a mock application process. You have to apply, interview, you have to get a letter. We're not just giving free memberships. You've got to earn it. And when you do earn it, you've now understood the process that goes into, say, applying to the golf club for a scholarship or applying to a college. And that's what we're trying to do, is sort of coach and mentor these kids through these challenging teenage years so that they're successful when they're turning 17 and 18, and not basically, unfortunately, sometimes getting kind of pigeonholed into staying on the island when they ought to go and spread their wings and come back later.
So a book nerd or somebody who's severely overweight would still be included.
Absolutely.
Other questions from the committee?
I'm here, Denise.
Oh, okay. Joanne, Jeremy, then Joanna, and then I'll go to Libby. Joanna?
Sure. So I want to understand. So essentially, the money that you're asking for would subsidize your paying the staff to do the mentoring, right?
Yep. And a little bit to marketing and some underwriting of rent and but primarily a staff. We have some staff, but to retain a staff on a year-round basis means they need to be able to afford housing, right? We need qualified people living out here, committing to working with high school students. Isn't just a part-time, low-paying career job. It's a significant commitment.
Mhm. So so the $600,000 that you're looking for how long would that support the program? Is that 1 year? Is it 3 years?
We've estimated that would be 1 year at full capacity. We're looking at this as a pilot to test and prove what we're saying. Realistically, it's a good amount of money. It will probably last us longer than a year because we're going to have to ramp this up over time. We're not going to have 600 applicants immediately, right? So we will expand to be able to accommodate all 600. Through the sports alone, we'll reach more than half the kids. And then there'll be kids that are a little bit harder to reach that take more time. It's intended as a 1 year pilot, but transparently, I think it would certainly last us longer than that potentially.
So the piece,
And they asked Joanna, the ask in the warrant article is for 300,000, not for 600,000.
okay, thank you. That I was a little confused by that. The second piece of this is so then would this be something like part of me wonders about this being like a contract through the school, right? Where the school could potentially hire you to offset, their coaching staff or their program staff. And then this would be money that could be allocated in that way. And you did say that you had some conversation with Beth.
That's exactly what she asked for.
Okay.
She said that's going to be the best way to do things, that they'll put it in writing and that they would explode the program. They would hold school days at the gymnasium where we would come and set up shop. They bring all the kids. And she also said, I want all the teachers involved. This is really what we need. She had her leg up in a cast and was saying, I need this. Every teacher needs this. Every kid needs this. If you can help get the funds, we will commit to this and we'll make sure it's successful. We'll get, not only will we bring you to the gymnasium, we'll make it mandatory for every kid to come over to the club. I've also been working with Shonda Bartlett, and we're able to get kids credit in school for engaging in a program and meeting minimum thresholds. So we're looking to get them school credit in addition to these other things we're describing.
So then basically this is an outsourced wellness program. I'm just trying to like,
I think that's right. It's a high school contract.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, go ahead, Stephen. Yeah, I know where Stephen's going with this. because-
Maybe, so you mentioned being able to provide us with a line item budget for this, and I think that's a good baseline for a further discussion.
Great.
It was in the agenda.
Yeah, you probably,
It
We
was in
have
the
a
packet.
budget here.
We have a budget.
He gave us
Okay,
one.
so you've got $600,000, of which 300,000 is committed from the golf club, is
no,
that right?
no, that's not true. I've asked them. We had meetings applied and supposedly we were going to hear back in December, but we haven't heard yet from them. I also asked the CRC for 100,000, and we'll be in front of the CPC as well, but that's down the road. By the way, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars for an effective program, which I'm not coming to the town for, but this is intended as a pilot, one time, 1 year.
So the $100,000, if it's available from CRC, that would offset this request, or that would be in addition to this request?
I don't think they're gonna say yes for $100,000. And that would be that would offset this.
Okay, so $300,000 is enough to get the program going if there's no other funding.
The program is going alive and well, and very effective. 300,000 would be extremely helpful in expanding to reach more kids.
So how many kids are being served today by this program?
Well, I don't know if Rockney, if you're on here, but somewhere always in the range of 10 to 20 engaged at all times. They work out as a group every weekend with a coach to have open access, and it's kind of rolling. So we have certain kids who their semester ends, new kids coming in. That's about what I can handle financially and what we can do through our own, self-funded resources. Any additional funds would allow us to start bringing in, and we're turning a lot of kids away at this point, lots of applications and lots of interest from the younger group as well, boys and girls club age and middle school age. We're just trying to stay very focused on one demographic and be successful first. Yes, the seniors would like something like this, and every demographic deserves access to equitable wellness. We ought to have a rec center eventually. I would encourage you to look at this as a pilot to test the viability of something like that before the town potentially launches $40 million at an enormous club out on Fairgrounds Road or something. This should inform a lot of those assumptions. It's kind of like an intermediate step between the 100,000 or so the town spent on research and the dream of a comprehensive community rec center. It's an in-between step. It's extremely affordable and gives us the opportunity to work with some real test case scenarios and really look at the impact of a program like this on the lives of these kids. Other demographics, in my opinion, start to get a little bit easier. This is the high-risk group. That's why I think we should start there.
Jill, did you have your hand up and I missed it?
Yeah, how does this fit with our
Oh,
house?
sorry.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Madam Chair, how does this fit with our house?
They're different.
Isaiah, the question from Joe Wright was, how does this fit with our house?
Well, Pauline is amazing. They've done a great job over there. I would say it's extremely different. I haven't been there in a little while, although I have been over, met with her, and certainly offered to be supportive. And she had a tremendous amount of interest. I think she even did some PR around it, but nothing had materialized. Our house sounds like, and again, I'm not totally informed, a place where teenagers are going, they're doing meals. It's kind of like a hangout. I had like a sort of like a boys and girls club kind of thing like this. I would say it's similar in its essence and its mission. It's completely different in the approach. Personally, that the vibe there that I experienced, if I was a teenager again, that's not what I would be interested in. It's very much, floral chairs and big rooms, and I don't know all that's going on there, but I can tell you that this is just very different approach. We're taking a more teen-centric, we're trying to set the table for them to do what they want instead of making it about us telling them or chaperoning or, they want autonomy is what they're really after in my experience. And we provide that as an autonomous environment.
Isaiah, on your article, on your citizen warrant article, you have a sentence, subject to a grant agreement between the town and Prixum or any other action relative thereto. I looked up Prixum Collective before the meeting today and understand probably on a very basic level what their mission is, but could you please explain that dimension of it?
Yeah, and I should just apologize in advance. I think we applied for this a couple months ago. Prism is an existing nonprofit that was started by friends of mine, and we decided to partner because I thought they had terrific branding that really spoke to teenagers. Teenagers don't want to be a part of, chin up for teens. And we want to create a brand that they're proud to represent that attracts and engages other teenagers. Like, hey, that looks cool. I want to be a part of that. So Prism was a vehicle for that, but they kind of did an about face, and they're in California, and it just didn't work out from a branding standpoint. We are rebranding our club to the Flagship Club, and we are rebranding the foundation to the Flagship Foundation. But these are just some moving parts, unfortunately, a little bit semantics. So I would ask you not to read too deeply into it and just know that it's new and evolving. And so that would be my answer around Prism. I would say kind of discard that.
I'm happy to hear that because honestly, their website created more questions than answers for me. So I felt there was a lot of things that would have had to been explored if that was the direction you're going in. So John Giorgio, you have your hand up, please.
Thank you very much. Isaiah, so I had a question about the entity that would be entering into the grant agreement. So would that be this foundation? And is that a nonprofit?
Yes. One of the board members, our financial chair, is Mark Connolly, who some of you may know, CPA, and he created the nonprofit corporate entity for us about 5 months ago and applied for the 501c3 status, which is all in process.
Okay.
We have not been awarded the 501c3 status yet, but we're not going to just sit around. And he advised us that there's no problem with moving forward as long as we function within the rules of a nonprofit. And that the only real drawback is somebody writes us a donation, they don't get their tax deduction yet. So that's
well, I just raised the question because if the town is going to enter into a grant agreement for these services to be provided, it really has to be with a nonprofit corporation.
Yeah. And by the way, this is a very common trend right now. It's called hybrid entrepreneurship, for-profit and nonprofit working together. You see it all the time. Tom's is selling shoes and donating shoes, and buy a bag, plant a tree. Some people may say, oh, he's got bad intentions. He's trying to underwrite his rent or whatever. And I would say that's totally bogus. This is very commonplace. A quick Google search can show that.
Right.
Thank you. Rob?
Are the heads that are in your budget 100% dedicated to this new entity?
100%. And I would invite any of you to come in on a Sunday and meet the coaching team and meet the students and speak with them yourself. They have stable housing. I provided it. Everybody's locked in.
Maybe that, I'm not sure that's the question is what you have in the budget, executive director, program director, coaching staff. Would those heads be dedicated to this program versus being part of that hybrid model you mentioned?
Well, I think there will be some carryover because in the summer, we're really a for-profit and they'll be involved in the business. And during the school year, they'll be totally dedicated to the nonprofit.
So the program would pause in the summer. It'd be a
Yes,
school year.
Is during the school year only. We can't handle the teenagers in the summer. I also don't think it's necessary. They got a lot to do with the beach and the town, everything else. The winter, the school year, as you know, is when there's not a lot to do and idle time is the devil's plaything.
Thanks.
John, your hand's still up. Do you have another question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant to lower it.
Okay. No, that's right. Brian?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Isaiah, did you say that this was gonna operate out of 1 Cherry Street?
No, One Cherry is a property we just acquired.
Okay,
Yeah, it's abutting 117 Orange Street where it currently exists. So it would really be out
program's
of,
operating out of the athletic club itself right now?
yes. Full disclosure, I am going before the HDC and the planning board with a new 7,000 square foot clubhouse that is proposed where One Cherry Street is. That could become a full service teen youth center during the school year for 3/4 of the year. That's the intention. I'm not there yet. I don't have those permits and I need to be careful what I say publicly, but I can see there's some confusion about it. And so I'm just letting you know, that's why I bought it. I didn't spend 1.2 million for a 300 square foot building. I bought the dirt because of the development potential. And we've got a teen center walking distance from the high school.
Um,
Go ahead, Brian.
did you say during the presentation that the superintendent wanted the teachers and other staff at the school to be participating? So part of me feels like if we're saying that, part of me feels like this is really a school program that should be being funded through the budget and the superintendent should be putting it forward to town administration if we want to be putting teachers and employees and, versus just strictly the original beginning of the conversation about trying to identify the 14 to 18-year-old population and focusing a program solely on them. It feels more like this is kind of directionally going into a way to engage the entire school population as a whole, including staff, which to me really sounds more like a program that the superintendent should be advocating for through the budget process, not somebody through an article on town meeting floor. It's an observation based on what I heard.
Brian, I had the same observation because as you know, every year in the school budget review, we always ask, do you need more money to do things? And every year they say no. So this seems like if this is the superintendent's intention to fully support this, it seems like an easy line item to put in the budget. Whether it gets approved is a separate topic, but at the same time, I would have expected to see it pop up in the school budget.
Jill.
Okay, Jill?
I was gonna say the same thing. It sounded like something that Beth could generate in her budget and then it would make a lot of sense. I think you all know I'm super interested in that targeted community having access to more recreation and more community connections. So I think it could be a really good idea, but it seems like it should come from the school budget. And I also, maybe Brian or John could clarify, but I don't, the way the money's broken down, it's really for salaries, I think. That's how I read the expenses. So once you're on salary or payroll, I don't know how that really works with the town with I guess a grant agreement.
Madam Chair, if you don't, is it okay if I respond?
Yes, go ahead, Brian.
I will say to your question, Jill, a lot of the grant agreements that we do don't necessarily allow for payment of those type of operating costs. It's more focused on the delivery of service costs. So I think there would have to be some type of discussion, because I am looking at the budget that the sponsor put in the package, and I am a little. I mean, there's an executive, so there's an executive director at $130,000, and that's only a partial salary, is that correct? The other part is going to be funded through what, the athletic club for the time that they're not working? For this program, is that how that works? And then there's a program director in here at 110,000 in years 25, 26, and 27. And there's really only, it looks like the majority of it is in what, coaching staff, because most of the years regular expenses only seem to be about 100 grand. Am I reading that right when I'm looking at it?
Most of what this is paying professionals to work with kids,
Okay,
to make a living. $100,000 is the poverty line in Nantucket. Nobody's staying on Nantucket at 65 grand and slogging it out. You can't have a house, you can't have a family. It's not sustainable. I know, I deal with it every day. So I think everything you're saying sounds reasonable. It's all above my pay grade. I don't know how you do these things. I'm just gonna uncover every option possible. I hope that the town will raise to the occasion to take action and make the most of this opportunity. It would be a shame for it to go away. And I guess I would say you'd have to ask Elizabeth, because what she told me, what Travis Lombardi told me, what all the coaches told me is we've always wanted this, we've always talked about this, we've always dreamed about this. We just don't have the budget for it. Otherwise, we would have gone and hired a professional strength and conditioning person to come be on staff and do this with us. So I don't know what the holdup is. Is the town or school or budget? I'm just trying to create solutions. I hope you'll help me solve it.
Jeremy?
It sounds to me like this really should go through school budget, but I also think that you need to price the service on a variable basis if you're gonna ask for not-for-profit money. Because part of your year, 3 months out of the 12 is a for-profit type time of year. And I would encourage you to relook at your numbers and break them out between fixed and variable, because you are a mix of not-for-profit and for-profit. And then I would encourage you to look again at the market share you think you're going to actually get of the 600 kids. Because it seems to me that $300,000 is a very, very high market share from what you'll get if you price it at $100 a kid per month. So I would just encourage you to go back and look at the numbers that way. And then to the extent that you're going to other not-for-profits, I think your ask will actually come down. So anyway, that would be my recommendation to you on how to present the opportunity. And I also sense you should go through the school budget.
So here's what I'd like to do on this discussion today. I would like to invite, who wants to speak? Libby, okay. Libby, let me just finish the thought and then I will happily turn it back over to you. I would like to invite the superintendent to join the next time we discuss this, and potentially Coach Lombardi, and honestly, just frankly ask the superintendent why she wouldn't put this as a line item in her budget. And Libby, over to you.
Just going to remind the committee that town admin does have recommendations on every citizen article. And with respect to this one, our recommendation was that it really needs to go through the contract review process. It sounds like the sponsor has submitted at least some portion of the funding there, but if we were going to let applications for funding for all of the things that people think should be happening on Nantucket go through this process, we wouldn't have a coordinated budget. And the entire reason for the contract review committee's existence was set up years ago when this exact type of thing was happening, where different groups and individuals were coming through the town meeting process to seek funds, but it wasn't coordinated, it wasn't reviewed. And there's a really stringent process that the CRC undertakes, as you all know. So that was really the basis for our recommendation on this.
Yeah, and so Libby, I fully agree that this should, and I was happy to hear that they have applied to the contract review committee for $100,000. We did have the situation a few years ago where Fairwinds put in a separate, just like this, a citizen warrant article asking for funds, and we're at the contract review committee. And after a lot of, how should I say it in German, Sturm und Drang, the Fairwinds actually then withdrew their citizens warrant article. I think on this one, I fully agree. It should go through the CRC. And I also think that due to the nature of the opportunity, it makes sense to see why it's not in the school's budget. At least to explain that to this committee and why this citizen warrant articles seem to be necessary when the school. If, you know, I am not doubting one moment that the school is as enthusiastic as Isaiah has said, and I'd like them to explain that to this committee. So my recommendation at this point to the committee, if you agree, is that we table this for another day and ask the superintendent if she can join at a future meeting and to kind of, at that point, draw a line under the discussion and make our recommendation. Is that okay for, Chris?
Well, I just want to question the timing of that with the CRC review of this. I mean, I'd like to do it all at once, right? Rather than have this drag out over several meetings. So
Sure.
maybe we time that in such
Yep.
a way that it's coordinated with understanding the CRC's big
Okay.
feedback.
And then we move that to do over to Joanna on the CRC, and then she can keep us informed.
And I know we
It's the
tend
timing.
to get the CRC recommendations
late.
really late,
Yeah.
so we should just.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Just one absolute observation is the CRC does a great job, but they have a budget of about $600,000.
Yep.
And they already have 10, 15 existing 10-year plus legacy programs they finance.
Yes?
So one's expectation should be if they were to say yes and love something, the amount of money they might be able to allocate is going to be far less than anything's being asked for here.
Well, they've asked for 100,000 from the CRC, so that isn't to affect the 300,000. That was a separate ask in the citizens warrant article. So yes,
You know, I don't know. I'm just saying as a gating factor, even if they've got a resounding yes, they're only going to get a tiny amount of money. So we don't want to wait too long before having them back to talk about it, I guess. That would,
Yeah, but I took it from Libby that, you know, the CRC is still sort of the arbiter that plays this role of diligence on opportunities like this. And I think if the CRC were to come to us and say, we think the select board's only giving us 600 again this year, because they don't really, I mean, the select board makes that decision on a yearly basis. I think they could come to the select board in a given year and say, we won't, you know, we recommend 1.2 million if they had the right things. But I think what I'm hearing is if the CRC would come back and say, yeah, we think we've done the diligence in this, we think it's really important. You know, we're not gonna get the money, but the town should see other ways, that would be a big impact, and that's their role.
yeah.
okay, we'll figure out the timing of that. We don't have to do that now. Joanna?
Yeah, I was just gonna speak to the topic. So basically, I think we've got $1.2 million in requests through the CRC this year, and Isaiah did come and make a presentation to the CRC, which we listened to, I think it was last Friday. And so we won't begin our deliberations until the 31st of January, and our plan right now is to have the report to you the first week of March. But to your point, Chris, we do have quite a bit more requests than we have the ability to fund. And so it would be unlikely that the full request would be met.
Chris?
Well, I think the school is important in this though, because not just for how the funding flows, but somebody has to own this if it's gonna happen.
Yes.
And maybe the CRC will do that job. Maybe they're the ones to bring the school into the diligence on this, but that's the other reason to have it live in a budget where somebody's responsible for the performance of it. It can't just kind of hang out there as something that
Right.
town is granting to without having it integrated in terms of the success of it.
Right, and I believe, Chris, that as part of the CRC review of this, the financial piece of this would be far more of a service provider reimbursement than a blanket, grant. I mean, because that's how the CRC money works. The money is, reimbursed quarterly after reports are submitted. So the way in which the money would be accessed is different than the way in which money would be accessed through a town appropriation, like a citizen warrant article.
All right. So are we comfortable with tabling it to another day, or is everybody ready to make a recommendation now?
I think it's fine to table it for another day.
Okay, all
I
right.
second that.
okay, all right. So, we don't have to, thank you, Jeremy. So Isaiah, I will, like before, I'll give you at least a week's notice when we need you to come back, and we will reach out ourselves to the superintendent to make sure she can attend at the same time.
Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time today.
See you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Next topic is, discussion, deliberation, and potential motions for citizen warrant article I, amend charter section 2-1 legislative powers. Campbell. Same, I know you've been on since the beginning, so I don't have to explain, please give us your 5 minutes that you would do at town meeting, and then we'll ask questions, and it'll, as you can see, the discussion goes way longer than 5 minutes. So thank you for being here.
Campbell, you're muted.
Yeah, she knows. I think she's trying to unmute.
There.
There you go.
Okay, great. I'm glad I got that together. Well, as much as I would like to tell you that I'm as organized as Isaiah just was, I'm probably not. But I am here, and so I think my article, if I recall, is pretty self-explanatory. So I was going to use the citizen warrant article questionnaire to sort of go through, what is the purpose of this? What inspired this to come up? That kind of thing. So one of being a problem solver, I just have to put myself out there, is that a couple of the complaints that have been coming out of town meetings in the last 4 or 5 years are really a lot of complaints about how long it goes on for, how large the warrant is, how, the town meeting process isn't responsive enough because it only meets once a year, that kind of thing. And so I had found in reading the Town Government Study Committee report from June 3rd, 2021, their third recommendation, when these issues were considered, the third recommendation, which did come out of public hearings, was to require a semi-annual town meeting, and in the event there's a semi-annual town meeting. And the committee voted to recommend that to amend the charter in that way, and it was voted in unanimously. So I'm sort of pulling from that and proposing this biannual meeting. Now, I'm not doing it as 2 town meetings. I'm trying to, and I spoke with Mr. Giorgio about this, so he may be able to clarify, but it's 1 town meeting, right? We have the 1 town meeting that's divided into 2 business meetings, as it's stated in some towns' charters, or 2 biannual meetings. And that way we would be able to have just the 1 warrant, and do the one, it would be very much the way we have it now, except that the burden of the May town meeting, which is where our timing is at this time, wouldn't be so large on the people that were meant to attend. So as someone in the trades, I happen to know that you hit after April 1st and everybody is straight out getting everything ready for the summer residents that come and that sort of thing. So a town meeting makes it very difficult to attend, and because there's so much on their plate. And I was just thinking that if we divided this out and let's say we did the financial sort of financial end of things, plus other citizens articles as determined by the select board in the spring, and we did the zoning articles, which at times can be quite a lot, and a lot to understand more in the fall, that we might be able to, one, get more people attending, people that were interested in financing or knowing that it was only going to be one evening of articles could focus on that and go to the meeting instead of rolling their eyes going 110 articles. And I think one year we had 121. So I think you get the idea there. As far as what I'm trying to achieve, let's see. And I was on the town government study committee when it was its last rendition. I did do a lot of research on various town charters and found this format being used in other towns in Massachusetts. And also the Secretary of State has a guide out. It's called a Citizen's Guide to town meetings. And in that, he also discusses biannual meetings and sort of lays out the format, which is pretty much what I have written in this article. So the wording is not new. It comes from other charters and from this Citizen's Guide to Town Meetings, which is an explains town meetings and how they operate. When it
Campbell,
comes,
can I have the committee ask you questions now?
that'd be great.
That'd be perfect. Okay, Chris?
Sure, I have two questions if I may. The first is, do you see this as an alternative to a switch to a town council meeting, that this is a step in making town meeting more efficient so that we wouldn't need that switch? Or it's just something to do in the meantime, or if that doesn't happen?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, go ahead, Karen.
You know, I actually don't see this as a challenge to the town council, but I also don't think you can keep operating inefficiently and creating so much negative response and feeling within the town that you're supposed to be representing and that they're supposed to be able to operate in. And so I see this as just a way to address the problems that we have. That's all.
Thank you.
If it works out, I don't know the whole town council thing. I just, it just seems we have quite a problem. It comes up. We hear about it a lot in the spring, and I'm just trying to, you know, move the question down the road and get some solutions going here.
And then my second question, if I may,
Please.
is on the veto over real estate transactions. Is that new that's in here at the very end? That's
Excuse
something
me?
that does not exist within town meetings powers currently?
No, may I address
Yes,
this?
please,
Yeah,
John.
please, John.
So, no, that is part of the existing section 2-1 of the charter. So Campbell had asked me to help her draft this, and typically what you do is you present to town meeting the entire section that you're amending. And so anything in gray shade is new. Anything that's not in gray shade already exists. Can I make a few comments at this point that might help focus
Please,
this?
John. Yep, go ahead.
So, first of all, this is a charter amendment. It's not a home rule petition. That's what Campbell wanted. It therefore will require a 2/3 vote of town meeting for passage, approval by the Attorney General, and then approval at the next annual town election in the form of a ballot question. That's the process. it is not uncommon in Massachusetts for towns to have charters that mandate 2 town meetings a year. Typically, the spring town meeting is considered the annual town meeting, although there are charters that provide both sessions of town meeting shall be considered an annual town meeting for purposes of the general laws. It is somewhat aspirational that the spring session of the town meeting would be, as Campbell indicated, devoted to financial matters, and that the fall session of town meeting would be zoning and land use and real estate. That's not to say that if there was a circumstance where the town needed to do an appropriation, for example, at a fall town meeting, the select board would be able to do that. There would be a warrant for each of the 2 sessions of town meeting under the hands of the selectmen, just the way there's now. We're going through a warrant, which will be adopted next week by the select board, hopefully, for the annual town meeting. So there would be 2 warrants. There really has to be to adequately warn the voters. What's different about this proposal that I've not seen before is that there would remain 1 annual deadline for the submission of citizen warrant articles. I would assume it would be, as it is now, like the 3rd Friday in November. Once all those articles are submitted and certified, it would be up to the select board in their discretion to decide which articles go on the Springtown meeting warrant and which articles go on in the fall session. And while they would not necessarily be limited to this, the select board could, for example, put all appropriation articles on the warrant for the Springtown meeting, and then would put all of the zoning articles, for example, on the warrant for the fall town meeting. So that's the way this would work. It doesn't take away the ability of any group of citizens to call for a special town meeting at some other time in the year that requires 200 signatures, but there would still be that avenue available to citizens to petition for a special town meeting. Also, the select board would not be prohibited in its discretion in calling for a special town meeting at any time during the year should the need arise. So that's essentially what Campbell's proposal is. I would say it's approved as to form by me, because essentially I helped to draft it. So it really is a policy question at this point, whether the Finance Committee wishes to recommend this sort of hybrid 2 sessions of the annual town meeting.
Thank you, John. Committee members, after the committee members, please, Curtis. Yeah. Campbell, okay, go ahead, Peter.
Libby, what is the cost to print the warrant? And if we had to print 2 of them, even though it might be less pages, what would it cost us?
The warrant is offhand, Brian might know better than I, between $40,000 and $50,000. Depending. We also, of course, publish it in paper. So all of those costs together are probably 50-ish. And we are, when we very frequently have a fall special town meeting, so we are a little bit doing this now.
Follow-up question for John, if I could.
Yeah.
John, can I just ask you a quick question first? So going right to Libby's last point, if we presume we're in a world of a fall town meeting more often than not, or let's just hypothetically say we're gonna have one of those every year anyway, it sounds like, other than the aspirational notion of trying to maybe massage the content from one another, for all intents and purposes, there would be no difference under this?
But you only have one cutoff.
That's correct. you know, there are some provisions in the general laws that can only be acted on at an annual town meeting. There may also be implications for your quorum requirements. But in Campbell's article, both sessions would be deemed annual town meetings for all purposes under the general laws and the bylaws. The one issue that I neglected to mention is that by mandating 2 town meetings a year, it's going to create almost a continuous 12-month process by town administration to do all the work that needs to be.
And the volunteer boards.
I'm sorry?
And the volunteer boards.
And yes, of course, yeah. And the volunteer boards. You have all of that now if you do have a fall town meeting. But if you look back at this past year, 2024, we were barely finished with the annual town meeting when everyone had to gear up for the special. Now, that happens whether if you have a special town meeting in the fall, that's always going to be the case. Here, it's mandated. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Just a quick follow-up to John, if I may.
Yes.
And I think the select board are already talking about a fall special town meeting coming up
Yes.
for next time, so that's why we're getting into the cycle, but did I hear you correctly that this could potentially help with quorum issues at the fall town meeting if it were amended? So to the degree that we might now run into quorum issues with a special town meeting, this would actually be a mitigant to that?
So I'm drawing a blank at the moment on what your quorum requirements are. I believe there's a different quorum requirement for the appropriation of money versus other actions by town meeting, and I believe it's 5% it's 5% and 3%. I don't recall, to be honest with you, whether that is delineated as to whether it's a special or an annual, but there are many towns that have different quorum requirements for a special versus an annual. If you have that, in this instance, if Campbell's article were to be enacted, the quorum for both sessions would be the same as it is for an annual town meeting, if that makes sense.
Yep, that was my question. Thank you.
Jeremy?
If I understand the timing of this, would this proposal not reduce efficiency of decision-making? Because we have one deadline in November that all warrants have to go to, and then decisions by the voters will be split between May and, let us say, September. So wouldn't this actually decrease government efficiency? I know it's not the intended purpose, but it strikes me that's what the effect might be.
Campbell?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak again. Just to your point very quickly, I think that one of the things that's very important to keep in mind here is this is about trying to increase participation on the voter side. Okay, so, and one of the reasons that I had gone with the single warrant was because in my mind, if we, given the nature of our voting population, if we had 2 full-blown annual town meetings, then we could end up potentially with 100, articles on each one, and we really haven't made any progress at that point, if you see what I mean. So for example, under the way I'm proposing, let's say we have the warrant, it's divided out. Instead of looking at all articles right now, perhaps you divide out what articles you're looking at and the time of year that you're looking at them, based on the rough draft of where the select board puts things. Let's say, because one of the reasons is to be a little more responsive here financially. So let's say an expenditure comes up that needs to be voted on at annual town meeting. and it's, it's June or July, or it's unexpected. And so the select board, this is the way I see it, the select board opens the warrant in order to add in this new article. And like, as with the past special town meeting, maybe it's open, the warrant's open for a week and they take in a few more articles for the fall town meeting. And then it closes. So the idea is not to try and increase the workload for everyone, is to try and figure out how to, on the volunteer board side and the town manager side and the town clerk side, how can we sort of alleviate the problems that the voters view and try and reduce some of the burden that is laid upon your boards, whether it's planning board, you guys, the select board, and try and get discussions more focused and hopefully addressed maybe a little bit more accurately for town meetings. So I just wanted to sort of clarify how I was thinking about it. Again, I'm not on the select board, so I'm not going to be the one going, okay, these articles seem like they sort of are cohesive and we should have these over here and these over here. And I think we spend quite a bit on town meeting as it is. When we have a town meeting that's scheduled for like one night and it goes into 3, we have to rent on the fly all the bits that go with it and get all the people lined up to go with it. So I was just thinking if we could have things more focused and predetermined, it could help in doing all that needs to be done in order to have the town meeting.
Thank you. A couple points I'd like to make. Number one, yes, our warrant is typically between 100 to 110 warrant articles. However, at town meeting, and that warrant is organized the way that you're talking about. First, it's financial, then it's typically the citizen warrant articles. After that, it's zoning, then it's real estate. So it already is segmented, number one. And typically, because I keep track of all this stuff, we call about between 40 and 45 articles every time. So we never do 105 articles, number one, and they're called in the order in which they're on the warrant. So if people just want to talk about appropriations and financials, they can leave after those 10 articles have been discussed. So I understand why you're trying to do this. I don't understand honestly why one has to be in May and one has to be in September. I think it would have been easier to have one in May and the next, split them by night rather than split them by 6 months or 4 months. So I understand your intention. However, when you take a look at the data behind it, it is how it's organized today. We only call about 40 to 45. They are in the order. The only time they went out of order was the one year when we had 3 STR articles that were all they needed to be called together. So that was the only time we changed the order of the articles. Otherwise, we keep the order as it is and off we go. So I honestly think what you're proposing is not effective.
If I could, Madam Chair, I totally get what you're saying, because I actually go to the town meeting. I stay the whole time. I read the whole article. The whole warrant. I spend the months it takes to get ready for it. Okay. So what I'm trying to address is not people like me. It's not me. It's the people that, I work with that, personally, I would prefer something in the beginning of April, the end of March, when my workload is not past my head. And that's the same for other contractors. And we need to have the financials, et cetera, passed by the July 1st deadline, right? For
June 30th, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And while I understand that not all those articles are called, a voter can't tell ahead of time which article will be called, which one won't. And so in order to be informed, you actually need to know the whole list of articles. You need to understand them. Or you're doing like many people do, and they just show up and hope that they get it when they're in their seat. And so to me, if you just had to review fewer, let's say you have to look at 50 articles, 45 articles, it's going to be an easier thing to digest than what we currently have now. I totally understand where a positive recommendation is probably not going to be coming from you as a board because of the work that's perceived this is, going to create. I don't see it creating anything extraordinarily expensive more than what we currently put out. It's just, like I said, I was just trying to alleviate some of the complaints from the voters, right? I'm not hearing complaints from the people that oversee the warrant and the process. I'm hearing from the voters, so I'm trying to address the voters' feelings that have been stated in all of the papers, et cetera. And when it comes to the research, on my end, anyway, I did spend about an hour and a half outside, gathering signatures in October. Just talking to random people, asking them if they're voters and explaining what my article is about. And in an hour and a half, I got 74 signatures. And so this article is not backed by my nearest and dearest friends that I could collect around a table and say, here, sign this up. All I need, your 15 signatures. I went out of my way. So I'm just saying from the voters' point of view, and thank you for your time.
Okay, Libby, we're not done, Campbell, so don't leave us. Libby?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I'm not afraid of more work, but the more time we spend on town meetings, 52 weeks a year, the less time gets done on everything else. Also, in our recommendation to the FinCom on this particular article, that we pointed out that we don't know if town meeting is going to be replaced by a town council, and maybe we should find that out before we add more town meetings.
Thank you, Libby. Peter, you had a question?
Yeah, I fear this is gonna make it worse for the voter because we're gonna have 2 meetings plus probably another special town meeting. So it'll be 3 meetings instead of 2.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Curtis now because, Curtis, you've been patient. Could you please come to the table? Because otherwise the owl won't catch you. I know, but we'd hate for you to miss the owl.
It won't take me long because I don't really have a lot to say.
That's okay. So maybe your walk took longer than what you're gonna say, Curtis.
Well, I'm getting my steps in.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think everything I've heard in the last half hour supports the idea that we should change to a town council. You've just proven the point, and that's all I need to say. I think Libby's point that we should play that out anyway is very important. But as I say, everything I've heard says it's time for a town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Jill?
Yes, thanks. And Campbell, thanks for writing this article. I think it's good to have this conversation and for people to think through the consequences of that. I think the big question I have is really the warrant is always approved by the select board. So it seems like we already have a process in place for them to change things as it is. Like they can already change the order. I don't know if they can reject a citizens warrant article for the all town meeting to say, well, we know we're going to do one in the special town meeting. I would think they can't do that. So I don't quite know how that works in terms of like pushing articles off, but I appreciate having the conversation and hearing from you about it. To Curtis's point, Curtis, I would argue actually it's not necessarily more efficient to go to that town council. So if you want to we'll have to have that discussion later, but the timelines on the budget are the same. Brian is governed by the state, Brian and Libby. So the timelines are the same on the budgeting. which is why
Thank you.
pushing off a budget matter after June really doesn't work so well. And that's why the town manager is so careful about what she is putting later in the year.
Thank you, Jill. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
You want me to leave?
Now you can leave. You get
I
more
don't
steps,
want to
Curtis.
leave. I like this table.
Oh.
I'm
Curtis,
not.
the application's
I'm not-
open. The
Hold on.
application's open in March for FinCom. We'd
I
be
have
happy to see you.
Plenty of things to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Okay, any other questions? Is there an appetite for a motion? Before you do, Campbell, any last words before I ask the committee what their preference is?
Yeah, just to clear up what Jill was saying, I wasn't saying that somehow that somehow Libby had either overlooked or somehow not included in the article, number one, a financial piece. It's if something comes up at the DPW or at the airport or wherever, and it would be more convenient to make an earlier decision on it. The other thing is that there is no pushing off or rejecting articles, though I would argue there are town charters that do allow for that type of thing, but that's not in this proposal. It's about dividing up as you said, it's already in order, right? You've already got your order. And so it's sort of drawing a middle line, and it hasn't rejected anybody's articles or tried to stop the ball rolling.
Thank you, Campbell.
Anyway,
Thank
I
you.
don't need to keep going. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Peter,
Motion not to adopt?
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is motion not to adopt, and there's a second discussion on the motion.
Sure.
Chris?
I actually don't think it's a big deal one way. I think we're in 2 town meetings for the foreseeable future until we do, we're gonna all switch. So I'm not sure it's that big a deal. I don't think there's a risk we'll go to 3, because I think with a second, there'll be time for the select board to do what they need to do. However, unless I heard from town administration that knowing there was gonna be a second one somehow created an efficiency, like taking out the uncertainty, then I don't think we need this to make that happen. So.
Thank you, Chris. Anything else? In which case I'll go to a vote. I'll start with Jill. The motion is motion not to adopt.
Aye.
Okay, hold on a second. I have to keep score.
Yeah.
Okay, Joanna,
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Denise? Aye. Thank you, Campbell.
Joe, I.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. Joe,
It's so quiet today.
It's so quiet. Thank you, Joe. Okay, thank you, Campbell. All right. All right. I do not see Megan Perry on the list of attendees there, Stephen. So the next item on our agenda,
I'll vote it anyway.
we could, of course, discuss it and vote it.
That's fine with me. Sorry.
Okay. Discussion, deliberation, and potential motions for warrant articles for Article Z. Oh no, I've got the wrong one, sorry. Article O, real estate acquisition, 3579 South Shore Road. And Mr. Gibson, I don't think,
Yes.
are you here to speak to that article?
No, I'm not. 34 Hinsdale Road. I'm not sure if they included it on.
It's not included on this, and it goes to the planning board first,
Oh.
doesn't it? With 34 Hinsdale, hold on, let me just take a look.
The septic system.
Oh, that has to go to the sewer commissioners first, so that's the select board hears it, and then they tell us what they thought.
Ah.
So that'll be, I'm sorry, I wish I asked you in the beginning, but this has been entertaining, weren't? So no, we won't be discussing that tonight.
Okay, all right.
Sorry,
Thank
Mr.
you for-
Gibson. Oh, boy, next time I'm gonna, okay. Curtis, stop doing commercials behind my back. Curtis. Curtis. No more commercials. Okay. As the sponsor isn't here and I wrote to her on January 6th for today. It was 10 days notice. But I didn't get an email. Did you get an email, Stephen? She wasn't coming?
No.
Then we'll table it to another time. Okay. All right, the next agenda item, and we could have talked about Mr. Gibson's, but we're not the sewer commission. Discussion, deliberation, and potential motions for warrant article for annual town meeting. Is there anyone on the meeting that wants to discuss an article that we haven't discussed? Seeing no hands raised, I will move to committee reports. Joanna, CRC.
So we are in the process of reviewing all of the applications. As I said, we have quite a bit more requests for funding than we have money to give away. And we are, we've worked, I think, really hard to streamline the application process, and it has, I am happy to report, and those who have come before me will appreciate this. It is much easier. So we are marching forward in time here. So that the timeline is that we will deliberate on the 31st and have the report to you, and then hopefully be able to meet with the FinCom the week of March 4th.
The one thing I'm going to ask Joanna on that is we can do this later offline, but if you have your deliberations and you've come up with proposed allocations, potentially that we might be able to get that ahead of the report itself, just so we could, yeah, because March 4th is the last week. We have, you know, a couple meetings that week to finalize, and it's really late. So usually CRC should be mid-February, so.
Yep, I think that's fine.
Okay, thanks. Peter, solid waste?
I have not been included in the work since we've gone out to bid. Brian could probably give us a better update on that.
Okay, Brian, do you want to give an update on solid waste?
To the extent that we received the proposal or response to the RFP, and the committee that was established is currently evaluating the responses and the proposal for a recommendation to the select board at some time in the future.
Do you have an idea of when that will be?
I believe sometime in March. Libby can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're
Okay.
targeting for that recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Peter, our island home?
Yeah, we're getting ready to go out to bid. We're outside of elevators. We've had multiple people put in their proposals, and which is exciting. The elevator, we've only had one, but there's only one elevator, so we could probably manage that. And you know, I just want to add, there's a letter to the editor in today's paper in favor of the nursing home, but against a lot of things about it. It's totally full of inaccuracies. So I'm sure we'll have a correction next week on that. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Jill, Capcom?
Yes, we are finishing up our work. We're supposed to vote on a final report tomorrow. So that's should be available to everybody. I don't know if the vote will go tomorrow, but provided we vote tomorrow, then we can make the report available to everybody.
Thank you. And just for the committee's edification, next Wednesday is the joint select board finance committee Capcom meeting. I'm sure all of you can participate by Zoom, but that is just a reminder. I realize I'm jumping to the next date of next meeting, but there you go. Joanna, the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, I can't say crack out loud.
So we have been talking about, I think, as you know, creating some funding mechanisms or structures which would allow us to save money. And we had a meeting this past week and discussed that. We are not going to, it's too late, I think, to put it forward to create anything for this town meeting. We are anticipating that we may be in the timeline to make that request happen for the special town meeting in the fall. And we're doing a little more work with staff to put together a letter that we're going to send to the select board asking them for feedback.
Thank you. And Leah Hill did do a presentation last night in the select board of the third and fourth quarter reports of the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, and she did also mention that in her report out. And then last but not least, Jill, Town Council Study Committee.
Yes, and Jeremy is the alternate, so if he wants to weigh in, he can. He's been coming to all the meetings as well. We meet about every other week now. I think you all know that we're looking at doing a sense of the meeting to have that on the warrant. It's already in the draft warrant. And have people vote on that about whether or not we want to keep moving forward with the town council. Not just the committee, but do we want to keep moving forward to write the charter? Because there's a lot more involved in that than just us talking about it and making tweaks to it. It's obviously big changes. So that would be like our focus group. And that's, that'd be very exciting to get that feedback, I think.
Cool, that would be exciting. Okay, thank you for that. The date of our next meeting is next Wednesday, the joint meeting with planning board, or not planning board, Capcom Select Board. The meeting after that is January 23rd. So that's our next meeting to review articles. The two that didn't show up on Tuesday will be there next Thursday. If the whatever doesn't rise. Okay, and then other business, I do actually have one item. So when I went through the budgets and sent out the budget assignments to everybody, thank you. I noticed that Rob, you have actually volunteered, lucky Rob, for 3. So on Our Island Home, I would suggest either Stephen or Joe becomes the new Rob, unless you're really wedded to being on Our Island Home. And Joe, I know you've done a lot of thinking about Our Island Home, so would you be willing to look at the budget for Our Island Home as one of the lead questioners?
Sure. I think my memo should go to Peter.
Okay, all right. Yes, that's fine. And Stephen, is that okay, or did you want to wrestle Joe for the Our Island Home?
I don't want to wrestle. He's remote.
You're bigger than I am.
Little arm wrestling remotely. Let's see how that works. Okay, because it could have been Joe or Steven. You both have one, but Joe has sent me several emails in respect of Our Island Home, so I thought he's already done the homework. So it seemed logical that he would be
Quite
he
logical.
would replace Rob if Rob was willing to step away.
Yeah.
Thank you all for that. Any other business from the committee? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so made by Stephen, seconded by Peter, roll call, Jill,
Hi.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, aye. As always, thank you, Stephen, for all the help. Libby, Brian,
Good job.
Susan, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, I did get Joe this time.
Couldn't